Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Commander Clash podcast, where the Commander Clash crew, Richard, Seth, Krim, and me, Tomer, we discuss Commander-related topics. And today, we're going to go over some cards that we used to play a lot, and now we play significantly less. And there could be a bunch of reasons for that. Maybe our playstyles shifted in a way that we don't really enjoy these cards like we used to. Maybe there might be budget reasons. There might just be various reasons why we personally do not run these cards that we used to run a lot anymore. And that's not to say that these cards are bad. That's not to say that you shouldn't be running these cards. But we all have our personal preferences, and we all decided to shift from certain play styles, from certain cards that we used to play, to cards to other cards. And that's kind of a natural process in Commander, and it's just kind of interesting to see, looking back at like previous Commander Clash seasons, like Season 2, Season 3, Season 4, we're on Season 11 of Commander Clash. We want to see what cards we used to run a lot back in the day, and see why we don't run them now, and just discuss it. So let's, whoa, what's my voice today? 1 second.
Is that a goldfish scoopy cup?
This is the prototype, Richard. This is the prototype for the Scoop Sippy Cup. I wanted to show. Oh, speaking of, by the way, if you want to support the show and you want to support this channel, you can do so one of two ways. The first way is you can give us monies and we can give you product, like all the sweet playmats on Richard's wall. Maybe if you want a Scoop Sippy Cup and you want something like this, maybe styled as scoops, you can leave a comment, email Richard, specifically Richard. It won't just be me this time asking for it. And there's sleeves and deck lists, or sleeves and deck boxes and all that good stuff at the MTG Goldfish merch store.com, mtggoldfishmerch.com. And also, the other way you can help us out is wherever you're listening to this, be it Spotify, iTunes, YouTube, wherever. If you give us a little like button, a little follow button, a little whatever the equivalent is on wherever you're listening, that helps us out a ton as well. So that's that spiel. That was a great transition. And now we're going to transition.
Perfect.
Yeah. Now we're going to transition to the first card on our list. Let's kick it off with Krim. What do you got for us?
All right, so something that I used to play a lot of, and like if I had blue, I pretty much threw it in. It was like one of the first few cards I would always add. It would be Mystic Remora. So if you don't know what Mystic Remora is by now, it's a single blue, and whenever a player, an opponent casts a non-creature spell, they pay for or you draw a card. So normally this card is like stellar in CDH, like I would still play it there, but in regular EDH, the games are slow enough to where I just noticed that a lot of people are just like, they just don't do that much into it and they just pass, or they play a creature, or they do something, and it's just, I've kind of just stopped adding this to all my lists. It just was not what it once was for me. Not to say that the card is bad. The card is like good, like in CDH still, and it probably is right in certain metas, but most people just don't play into this, like for like the play groups I'll try. So I've kind of just dropped it.
Interesting.
I don't even play it in my Alayla deck.
You know what's crazy? Like, this was, I remember before like Kaldra, before like Edric or whatever, I feel like I was most known for this Mystic Remora card. Like, I would just like shill it every single time in all my budget commanders. And I ran it primarily I ran it in basically every single blue deck, because at the time, for most of its time in Commander as a format, it was like less than $1. It was like, yeah, Risk Study is like $5 or whatever, which is a lot, but you could get Mystic Remora and, you know, it's only like 30 cents or whatever. I remember like I just stopped adding it to budget commanders once it hit like, you know, $5, and I'm looking at the price right now, it's $10 US. $10 US? Why hasn't this gotten a reprint? It's on the reserve list.
I feel like it's still a really good card. I don't play it that often. I guess I've never played it super often, but really, like, if you draw 2 cards, 3 cards, like, doesn't that more than pay for itself?
Well, first off, I find people don't play into it, and then on top of that, I'm constantly paying for its upkeep and when I want to set up for it, when I want to set up my turns, right? So I just like I used to play this, and I'm not like saying that like as again, it's a terrible card. I've just noticed that I don't play it as much anymore. It just doesn't do enough for my decks. I'd rather have something else.
One's interesting. I don't play it because I also don't play Ristic Study. So to me, it's like the OP card draw that I don't need. But maybe Krim is right. Maybe you can actually play around it. But I feel like you slap this on turn 1, you're drawing like 2-3 cards. Like people are not skipping Rampant Growth because you cannot pay 4, right? Like you just absolutely cannot pay 4. You can actually pay 1 for Ristic Study. People will actually wait it out. And this one has a time on it, right? Like you only pay cumulative upkeep for so long. So I feel people play around this more, like in that sense, they'll wait for it, but maybe they don't. They're like, just 4, I'll just slam Rampant Growth. So I don't know. Seth, would you play Rampant Growth into this?
Of course.
Yeah.
Obviously,
I mean,
yes.
Seth's
I
at the
still
table.
play
You
this.
know, you're at least drawing one card per turn.
That was
But
other
are
thing.
you skipping your setup for it too? That's the main thing.
You're set up 1 mana though.
So I think of it as like maybe somewhere between 2 and 4 mana. Like I'm not planning on keeping this around for the whole game. Like that's not really practical. But like playing it and like paying once or twice, I think that's often worth it. And I also think like while it does have value on turn 1 or turn 2, I also think it's a pretty good late game card because 4 is a really high number. Like 4 is enough that you can't, like in the late game Ristic Study, maybe you cast a couple of spells and people pay for it and it loses some power. 4 is so much that you just, it really is when they cast a spell, draw a card. I don't think I've ever seen anyone pay for one of these triggers a single time. So in the late game, when everyone wants to have their big turns, you can drop it. You got plenty of mana that you can still execute your game plan and probably draw a few cards with it. So I'm not saying you're wrong to not play it, but I still think it's like actually one of the most powerful card draw spells that you can play in blue.
I would still run it a lot. But I do agree that it's not as powerful at casual tables as it is at CDH, because at CDH you just have to imagine like what are the most played cards, and it's going to be like all the legal Moxen, Sol Ring, Mana Crypt. Those have to be in the deck. Jewel Lotus is really popular too. So if you manage to drop this early on, you're going to be looking at a table that everybody's running like half of their deck is non-creature spells that are incredibly cheap that they want to chain together. Whereas in casual tables, that's not really the case. You're not really running all that fast mana. And so I think the average yield in a single game, a more casual table is going to be a little bit less. That said, I still think it's a good card, but I do try to stick to themes in my decks, and I want to have like thematic card draw. So I'm only going to be running this in like Brago, for example, ways to like reset the counters. Cheesy, yeah, cheesy,
yeah.
Really good in cheesy. Muldrotha, it's really good because you never have to pay the cost. Really, you can just sacrifice it and then cast it from the graveyard. So I like it. I won't run it in generic decks because I really like sticking to themes. But I still think it's pretty good. But yeah, it's not close to as good as where CDH is. It's not like you're just like you're lowering your power, the deck's power level like super low if you're not running it right in a casual table. But I still think it's good.
I think it's medium.
But
it's like Ristic Study is better. So I do like Ristic Study a lot more. So
Ristic Study is pretty good, yes, I hear.
I'll play that card. That card's pretty good.
Ugh. All right, we'll move on. Seth, what do you got for us? What's a card you don't play that much anymore?
So this one may be a little bit of cheating, but the card, if I got to be specific, is the Empiric Tutor. But really, it's tutors in general. So there's a couple of things going on here. If you look back at my early Commander Clash decks, they are overloaded with tutors. Some of my most played cards from the early season are like Dark Petitions and Increasing Ambitions and Diabolic Tutors and Demonic Tutors and Vampiric. Like I would play 6 tutors, 8 tutors in every deck I could. Like if there was a decent tutor, it's going to be in my deck, because when I first started building Commander decks, I was like, wow, I got 100 singleton cards. I'm always going to want to be able to find the good ones or the right one. And my whole philosophy on playing Commander has really shifted over the time I've been playing, where now I actually want the variance. If I want consistency, then I'm going to play Modern, or I'm going to play Legacy or Standard or whatever. I want to have the inconsistency of not always having that card, because that's kind of, I think, part of what the format's about. But that goes all the way up to Vampiric Tutor, which I was actually looking through my deck list. I played Vampiric Tutor twice since 2019. When if you look at my older decks, they're in literally like every single black deck is playing Vampiric Tutor. That's like Demonic Tutor and then Vampiric Tutor, the first ones you add. And that's in part because I try to only play like one tutor per deck now, and if I'm in black, I'm going to play Demonic Tutor. But it's also that I actually think Vampiric Tutor is not as good as people give it credit for. Like, it's putting the card on top of your deck rather than into your hand. I don't know. I think that loses some of its value. If I am going to play a tutor, I want to be able to get the card that I'm tutoring it for and use it right now, not wait a turn, not cast it on an end step. I want to be able to snag a Wrath and Wrath the board, or snag a removal spell and kill the thing that needs to die, not, do that with Suspend 1. So, not that Vampiric Tutor is bad. It is the best tutor outside of Demonic Tutor in the format, but I'm kind of down on tutors in general. I think the format's more fun when you don't have that level of consistency.
That's the most ridiculous take, Seth. So I agree with you for normal people. But for us as content creators, I found Vampiric Tutor has actually shot up over time because, we play a new deck every week, right? So the deck needs to do its thing, right? Like, we don't play the same deck like 10 times in a row. So to ensure it does its thing, you need to load up on tutors. And B, we play weirder and weirder decks as time goes on, right? Like, we don't play generic Jund good stuff deck type of things where any card is the same, like what's the point of a tutor. We play weird, here's the one card in my deck I actually want, and I built my whole deck around it. So I need the Vampiric Tutor, and I actually need to put like Pull from Eternity and other nonsense in there just to make sure it doesn't disappear. So I actually feel as content creators, we've actually played more tutors over time, and the one caveat is Crim and his opposition agents, right? You have to do a double take and think, like, is it truly worth putting in this tutor because you could get opposition agents?
Tomer says yes. Tomer says yes every time.
No, I've been respecting it recently. I swear, I've been respecting it. I remember there was like one time where you had 3 mana up, and I was the only one who respected it.
But for regular people, I think I agree with Seth, where if you're playing like a deck consistently, like, playing singleton is where you want to be, right? So tutors are a bit overblown, right? People, if you build a deck so consistent, it's weird, right? Like, it's not in the spirit of the format, I think. But that's another discussion for another day.
I'm right there with Seth. I fully agree. I've cut tutors. Like, I started off just like Seth. Why wouldn't I want consistency, right? Like, why wouldn't I want this card every time, whenever I needed it? And then it went from cutting like just a few, like having like all tutors to a few tutors to then now I play like 1 or 2. I mean, like fetch lands, whatever. I don't really care about those. That's not what I mean when I say tutors, even though it technically does tutor. But yeah, like I think that it's just not. It just does. I want the inconsistency. I'm playing a singleton format. I want the singleton experience.
For me, sometimes tutors feel bad. They just like feel bad. Like, you get in this position where it's like, I can get my combo and win the game, but I want to be playing a fun game of Commander with my friends. Like, that's why I'm here. And it puts you in this like really awkward position where it feels wrong to tutor suboptimally and get a bad card. But then at the same time, it feels bad to just be like, oh, Vampiric Tutor, Demonic Tutor, whatever, Thassa's Oracle, gotcha, like, good game. Like, so I feel like tutors lead to decisions I don't want to be making on a regular basis.
Seth. You're telling me you've never suboptimally tutored? I do that all the time.
I mean, I do, but I feel
I'm just a bad player, so I suboptimally
a bit of both. A bit of both.
I do suboptimally tutor, but then I feel bad about it. So my solution has been just to play less and less tutors, so I don't have to make the decision at all. Basically,
I'm kind of torn on that because like sometimes like if the tutoring is like easy win the game combo, then I feel like the problem more lies with the combo itself than the fact that you're tutoring it up. Because if it's too strong of a combo, then like if you just also naturally draw into it, then the game just kind of also ends really quickly too. This obviously lowers the variance and you're going to do it more consistently, but I also like tutors when, for example, somebody else is running away off the board and need to find a board wipe. So in some ways it can actually prolong the game and give other people chances to pop off, as it were. I don't really run in my paper decks too much because I just don't like shuffling. I really don't like shuffling. I have small baby hands, and it's 100 cards, and my baby hands they can't do all the things. So I don't even run fetch lands.
We need to do a shuffling tutorial video, Tomer. Me and you will tag team it and do
You
a
would
video
have
about how
to
to
show
shuffle.
me. I would be like, what am I doing? I'm breaking like high value cards.
Watching Seth shuffle is scary and painful.
Just a 60 card deck, by the way.
Yeah, just
60 card single sleeve.
We went to Vegas in 2019 in the before times, and I remember like the scariest moment was when Seth was playing with it was like these like alpha decks or something with like
Black
actual
Lotuses
like real life
and power. It was probably like a $50,000 or $70,000 deck, like some ridiculously expensive deck. And
and you don't shuffle with in person, right? Because
I play Moto.
all your games is Moto, so it was like. So it's like I could see the stress on your face as you're handling these cards.
I think the Black Lotus survived. I'm pretty sure it survived.
You have to be so delicate. All right, moving on. Richard, what do you got for us? What's a card you don't play as much anymore?
All right, I was actually looking back at our mana bases from season 1, 2, 3. They're wild, right? So a lot of my most changed cards are how mana bases are built. We saw a lot of temples. So temples are like the Theros cards. They're 2 colors. When they enter the battlefield tapped, you scry. And then Vivids, which enter tapped, they add a color, and then they come with 2 charge counters, and you remove a charge counter to add a color of any mana. And it's just wild. We used to play this, and we used to be happy about playing temples. Lands have been power crept hard over the past couple of years, right? We have triomes, we have so many fetchable dual lands, we have battle bond lands. So like these lands are still like kind of respectable. Like if you're building on a budget, right? Like there's better than Guildgate still, and they're still playable. But if you're building optimal mana bases, these cards just have no place anymore, right? You have World Tree and things like that as well to fix everything over. So it's actually kind of wild how different mana bases are now compared to back then. And 5 color is like no issue if you have no budget today, right? Whereas before it was actually kind of challenging still.
10 dual lands, 10 fetches, and then what? You have like 6 others flex slots.
Yeah, but you didn't even have triomes back then, right? You can conceivably get like triple white or something in a 5 color deck today, no sweat, right? Whereas before you can't do it.
I was going to say, it's kind of funny. I still play temples sometimes in 2 color decks. Those are the decks where I find myself just needing more dual lands sometimes. So I play like a lot worse duals in a 2 color deck than I will in like a 3 to 5 color deck, where I feel like I just have so many shocks and fetches and battle bond lands that I don't need things like temples. But I still do have them show up on occasion when I have a 2 color deck, because there's only that many 2 color dual lands. So sometimes they still sneak in a little bit for me in those decks in specific.
I don't play them anymore. I think I play them only in 2 color decks where I just need the duels, right? But other than that, I find myself also removing them. There's just too many sweet new lands that do so much more. Between, like, an example, we just got the cycle of like Midnight Hunt lands and stuff like that, and those are actually amazing. And now with like more of the battle bond lands, I find myself just needing these less and less every day. At this point now, they're almost not in any decks unless I have like an altar or some kind of specific sentimental value to them.
I think that it makes sense. Like, I don't think it's ever been a secret to us that mana fixing lands that enter the battlefield untapped are usually the best ones that you should be running. But in the past, we have had, at least on Commander Clash, we used to have like budget restrictions. So I think one of the first house rules we had was all of our decks had to be 20 tickets, the online currency. So we did kind of alter our decks based on that. I think we had like a paper budget restriction on some of the seasons as well. But at this point, we've lifted all such restrictions. So that's why we like pop out like the Vamp Tutors and the Mana Crypts and whatnot now. I will say though, like even at the lower budgets, like we just have a lot of better options than we used to. The Battle Bond lands, or not the Battle Bond lands, the Battle for Zendikar lands, the ones where if you have 2 or more basics, they enter the battlefield untapped, and they have 2 basic land types. Those I like quite a bit. I actually like the Innistrad ones where it's like you have to show a basic land from your hand, because like if I'm in 2-color deck,
you're gonna list Pathways next. Seth is gonna lose.
No,
it.
I actually don't like Pathways.
Hold on. Pathways are better
other.
than the Shadows over.
No,
Innistrad
I like them
lands.
in 2-color decks. I'm gonna be running like 20 basics in my 2-color deck. So why not? Why not run those? And then the new ones, the Midnight Hunt ones, where it's if you
someone help Seth, he's
if you have
falling
2
over.
more lanes. Like what are the odds? What are the odds? I'm gonna draw this card. I'm gonna put it onto the battlefield tap. Like very, very low. Like I think a lot of people kind of undervalue basic lands. In a 2-color deck, I'm running 20 of them. Like that's my default. So
in a
like a lot of these
deck or in a budget deck.
Like if I'm in a budget deck, but like I almost never play like budgetless.
Lands are so
if you're
much
in a budget
better.
deck, you might as well just go the 18-18 split.
No,
right?
like a
these are
limited
great. Like
deck.
worst
throw in
case,
some guild gates.
you gotta have some consistency in your deck, and these have for both colors you need. And if you're in a budget deck, yeah, you can't afford like the Battle Bond lands or whatever. You can't afford your Mana Confluences or whatever. But you know what you will have? You're gonna have like the show lands. You're gonna have the I don't know, battle lands. You're gonna have the new lands. You're gonna have Exotic Orchard. Exotic Orchard was printed to death in all the precons recently, but that's a kind of a new thing. You're gonna have Command Tower, obviously. Path of Ancestry used to be like a $5 card, but they print it in every single precon now. So you just don't need to use a lot of the stuff we used to use, like Vivids and whatnot. Like even on a low budget, like you can have a really respectable 2-color mana base, or even a 3-color mana base, with most of your lands entering untapped with still getting some mana fixing. Seth, you don't like these cards.
I agree with your overall point. Our lands
Shadowlands
have gotten better, so you don't need to play Vivids and so forth, but I would play a basic over the Shadows of Innistrad lands. Like I find that to be like the worst. I would rather just have a basic. I think they're that underpowered.
You guys need to run more basics. You guys need to run. I want to see that. What's the math on that? You have 20 basic lands in your deck, and you're running the show lands, like the one that you have to show a basic from your hand. What are the odds?
No matter what the math says, you are going to top deck it the turn after you play your last basic every time. I've played them enough in various formats.
Tap, like, okay,
but
well,
it doesn't scry. Then just play an actual temple and get a scry out of it.
Scry's overrated.
At least you're getting some value.
Scry 1 is overrated.
I actually don't like the Zendikar lands that much either. I like the new Innistrad lands.
Wait,
I think those
No.
are very good.
You're talking about like
Cyclopath,
the duels, the one that actually have a type, like Sunken Hollow.
They're good with fetches, but I don't really like them
play
unless I'm
fetches?
fetching them up. Like if you're playing a budget deck and you're hoping to have 2 basic lands, I feel like you should just play the new Innistrad lands instead. That like just care about having any 2 lands on the battlefield.
Wow.
All right, it sounds like we need a dual land tier.
We do.
list,
We
which-
need a land
which
tier
feels
list
like
to tell
another
Tomer how
episode
wrong
in
he
itself.
Oh,
this
this
is
is a
actually
good
kinda
idea. I like this. I'm gonna write it down.
But
right now.
we can agree that temples and vivids are now poo poo.
Yes.
I mean, they're okay on budget, or if you still
And
have
temples
them,
are
they're still
overrated.
serviceable, right? But if you're trying to build optimal, there's
Yeah.
other options.
All right, I got one. Well, I was actually going to move in. I'm not going to discuss this one, but Evolving Wilds Terramorphic Expanse. Richard actually pulled out the stats of our most played cards from the last seasons of Commander Clash, and I actually noticed, like, since I'm usually the budget player, I noticed that I was running Evolving Wilds and Terramorphic Expanse in basically all my decks in the previous seasons. And as we were discussing all of this, you know, like, I don't run anymore because, as we just said, we have so many better options these days that it's redundant. I wanted to go to something more spicy, though. And this is a card that I ran, like, so much when it came out. I think it was, like, Season 6 of Commander Clash. Thematic Compass. This is an artifact that costs 2 mana. two generic mana, and you can pay 3 to tap it and search your library for a basic land card, reveal it, put it into your hand, then shuffle your library. And then at the beginning of your end step, if you control 7 or more lands, you transform Thematic Compass. And the backside is a land that can tap for one colorless mana. And you can tap it to untap target attacking creature and opponent controls and remove it from combat. So it basically becomes a Mazavith that can tap for mana as well. I used to run this in basically all my decks when it came out. I thought this card was so good because we used Mazavith all the time, which another card we don't run that much anymore. But like this is like a Mazavith that taps for mana, and it also like gets you card advantage. It gets you lands. So it's like, oh, I'm not in a green deck. I gotta get lands somehow. I don't know. I went from like playing it in every single deck to like steadily over the years. I don't remember the last time I played it. Like I don't. It went from like so played to not played. And I don't know what it was thinking at the beginning, honestly. What was I thinking?
I feel so personally attacked, Homer. I think if we
Richard
pull
plays it.
the top cards, I play this so often.
Yeah,
I think
Richard
this
plays
card is
Secret Rendezvous, all right? Like,
why is this
Whoa!
What
That's
do you
below the belt.
He plays
What do you
Ludwig
like about
Austria,
it?
all right? Richard plays a lot of things.
Why
do
do
I
you
like
it
about it?
Yeah, like
Because
why do you play it?
So would you play an artifact that's 2 mana, pay 3, tap, draw a card? Right? Because that's what it is. Right?
Oh
It
yeah,
draws
obviously,
a card,
yes. Yeah.
and then eventually it becomes a Mazavith, which is super valuable,
I would not pay
right?
2 to pay 5 mana to draw a card, pay 7 mana to draw a card, pay 9 mana to draw a card. No.
I would do it because it's not only draw a card, it's draw a card to ensure your land drop, right? So it's not technically ramp, but I think it's pretty good as long as you have enough basics, right? The biggest problem is a lot of decks don't run enough basics to support this, but essentially it becomes a Mazavith, and Mazavith is one of the best cards in the game. And the one downside to Mazavith is if it's actually one of your real lands, you're like very sad because it doesn't tap for mana and it costs a land drop, right? So this is perfect. It ramps you early game, and then late game it turns into a Mazavith when you're actually afraid of getting one shot or getting killed. So I actually really like this card, and I'm surprised, Tomer, you need to come back on the bandwagon.
I still run it in a single archetype, and that's land decks. Like I think this deck is actually best in green because the odds of you just playing it for 2 mana, and essentially it's a rampant growth that because it'll immediately flip on the end of your turn. You pay 2 mana, you put this on the battlefield, it flips into a land, and it's also a Mazavith. Like that's insane. But like outside of green, I'm like, nah. Like if I have to wait half the game to get it to flip, then I'm not interested. But like if the deck's goal is to ramp to 7+ lands as quickly as possible, I'm like, heck yeah, I'm in.
And I mean, it is pretty slow and expensive, right? You're paying 3 to draw a basic land. Like that's
even
I'm not
white can do
that
better
excited
than this.
about that deal. Like a random card, I think in general, I would be okay with paying 3 to draw a random card, but you can't do that too many turns in a row. Like it is, and it never really. I guess it ramps you once it flips technically, but it's not really ramping you in the front half. It's just adding the cards to your hand. So I've never played this card. I actually just went back and looked through my deck. One single deck in my entire Commander history has this card in it. So.
I don't think I even ever played this to begin with.
I doesn't believe in playing lands nor ramping. So this is
surprise, right? Like yeah,
but look, you can draw go with this, Krim. You can hold up your counter magic. They do nothing. You draw land.
The only time
But he
I've
never
ever had
finds 7 lands in a game, so it's
he doesn't have enough in his deck to ever flip it, so it's not actually that good.
This hard countered by opposition agent though. So
it gets hard countered, and then on top of that, I think the only time I've ever had this was because I stole it, right? Like I was like, oh, okay, I guess I'll take this, sure. And then but otherwise, I don't know. I mean, it just sits there, and I guess it kind of tutors. It doesn't put it into play. I don't know. It's okay. It's a lot of work.
It's so much mana. That's the thing. It's like
it's a
mana to
lot of
activate
work.
it. It's a lot. I was looking at the stats. Season 4, it was in the top 4 most played cards of that season for me. behind Bajuka Bog, Evolving Wilds, which, okay, and Reliquary Tower. And I stick by Reliquary Tower and Bajuka Bog still. All right. Moving on. What do you got for us, Krim?
Okay, so the next thing I have is it's a card that I used to look to as a finisher, and I'm sure people loved it when it happened to them, but it's a card called Tunnel Vision. And this used to be you could probably like on our list, I don't actually have the other cards that go with it, but I'll tell you what it does first. This is a card I had in every blue commander deck. It was a 6-mana blue sorcery. Name a card. Target player reveals cards from the top of his or her library until the named card is revealed. If it is, that player puts the rest of the revealed cards into his or her graveyard and puts the named card on top of their library. Otherwise, the player shuffles their library. So, you combine this with something like Hinder, Spell Crumple, and this was back before they did the rule change where you could get your commander tucked. So this was the go-to thing for me. I counter your commander, I tunnel vision you, milling you out, and laughing my way to the bank as you mill your whole library. And it was so prominent that people like in my pods had to start just putting Eldrazi in.
Wow.
So it was just a thing where I in a way, brought up the power level of the table. But yeah, it's this I stopped playing mostly just because of the rule change. I mean, every now and then I might just play it for the memes to see if I could just blindly get there, but it's so unlikely. But yeah, this is a relic, a commander finisher of Commander's Pass. So yeah, that's right. Imagine you playing your commander, me saying like Spell Crumple, move it to the bottom of your deck, and then naming it.
I think yeah, this used to be a really stylish way to finish somebody off, but it really hinged on the fact that Spell Crumple and Hinder used to be so much more powerful because they used to be able to put, your commander, the target's commander, into the bottom of the library. And that was like one of the few ways you could permanently deal with a commander at the time. The most prominent was tucking them into the library, but they changed that rule. So now if the commander would go anywhere, you could choose to make it go to the command zone instead. Like it will go there, and then you'll be like, all right, now I'm going to move it to the command zone. That's like an instantaneous thingy. So,
unless you're playing against me, there's a strong chance that I might misclick on Moto. And then
I think this would be cool to do it again, to actually bring it back and try to kill somebody with tunnel vision now that it's not as in style, you bring back a retro kill.
This legitimately was just every blue deck of mine. So
you were just playing in like every deck. I could imagine doing it as like a against the odds Commander Clash episode where I tried to like get someone, but I couldn't imagine running it as like one of my primary finishers. Maybe back in the old days though, when you were actually playing those counter spells.
Yeah, like the thing here is I used to play this plus, like, I mean, this is more stuff that I used to do that I don't do as much anymore. I used to just play like 20 Doom Blades and like 30 counter spells, and like this was one of my few win conditions, and like Thraxamundar.
That sounds like every deck you play, Krim. That sounds like last week on Commander Clash.
Oh no. It used to be. I used to essentially build.
Blades now.
Yeah, I played 19. I'm a changed man, okay? Like, I legit used to build my decks as if it's a 1v1 commander.
I could see it. All right, moving on. And Seth, what do you got for another card that you haven't played in a while?
Next up, I got two Wraths. Day of Judgment and Decree of Pain. I was looking at my early season commander decks. These cards were staples in their colors. If I was a white deck, I had Day of Judgment. If I was a black deck, I had Decree of Pain. Decree of Pain, I still play on rare occasions in specific decks, but it is definitely not a card that I play in every deck anymore. Day of Judgment, I haven't played in forever. The reason why I think is very different between the two cards. Day of Judgment, it's just gotten outclassed. Like, Day of Judgment, they print a new Wet Wrath every set in between, like Vanquish the Hordes and all the new ones that we've gotten. it's just fallen off the list. Like, it's not one of the, 3 or 5 or however many best wraths in the format in its color, so I don't play it anymore. Decree of Pain, I feel like Commander's just sped up since we started playing. Back when we started playing 5-7 years ago, whatever, and it was a little bit more battle cruisery, a little bit slower. I really liked Decree of Pain because you would actually get to 8 mana and wrath the board and like refill your hand. But now cards have gotten a little bit faster. The format's gotten faster. Things are more efficient. And getting to 8 mana is just not that easy anymore. So now I got to be like a ramp deck or something, more so than just an average commander deck for me to actually put Decree of Pain in my deck, even though wrathing the board and drawing a bunch of cards it feels so good. So it makes me sad that I don't play it anymore, but it went from being like the first card I'd add to my deck to just like every once in a while throw it in for nostalgia or whatever.
But think of the card draw.
It's just too expensive. 8 mana is just like too. Same with like in Garrick's Wake, Plague Wind. Those were cards I also used to play, and they're just like they're too expensive and too slow for your typical deck, I think.
I still play Decree of Pain. I think that card is so good. Like the cycling ability and whatnot. I mean, the Day of Judgment, sure, but like Decree of Pain, come on. That's goated, right? Like that thing is goated. It has cycle. It has cycle at the very least.
Yeah, so you can draw, go, board wipe. That's exactly Crim's specialty.
That card is goated. Hall of Famer.
So far, the card Seth lists is the first cards I throw in any deck with black in it. I'm like, first card, Empiric Tutor. Second card, Decree of Pain, because you need the tutor to get the Decree of Pain.
I don't believe you run
You just need to ramp more, Seth. You just need to ramp more so that you can play their 8 mana spell and then wrath the board, draw 8. Like, you basically won the game, right? Like, everyone's lost their resources. You have a handful of cards. The only reason I would cut it is like because it's too powerful, like in Garrick's Wake or something. But so much card draw, Seth.
Okay, imagine this. Imagine this. This is the ideal Richard turn, all right? You attack with Cartographer's Hawk. You ramp. You put Cartographer's Hawk back to your hand. You Day of Judgment. How do you lose?
Or you just have Toski, an honorary insert arbitrary tribe, and then you board wipe.
It doesn't even die.
The other reason I didn't even get into is like there's way more free counters now. Like everyone's running all these free counter spells, and you know what's really painful? Tabbing out for 8 mana just to get, skip your entire turn as your opponent casts a free counter spell on it
for a reason.
Because how painful it is.
One way or the other, somebody is hurting.
I mean, if you were trying to wrath and you got countered, you probably lost the game anyway. It doesn't matter if it was 8 mana or 4 mana, right?
Yeah.
I mean, what you could do is wrath with counter backup with a whatever. Right?
Well, for those exact same reasons, though, you could force your way through with a Decree of Pain. You can counter them back. And
you really don't feel like it's
hand.
too slow? You really don't think it's too slow? You actually put it in all your decks? Interesting.
Is Seagate Restoration too slow?
It's a land.
Yeah. But how many times have we actually cast it? We cast it a significant number of times, and that literally doesn't even wrath the board. You literally time walked yourself just to draw cards, and you survived, right?
I do agree that it is worse than it used to be. Like 8 mana is a lot, and the fact that there's more efficient answers to it. Not just the fact that since we started playing it, like there used to be Force of Will, but we didn't play it as much. Now we do. But we now also have Fierce Guardianship. We also have Pact
Force of Negation.
Force of Negation. But also green has Heroic Intervention. And white
Teferi's
not only has Teferi's Protection, but also Flawless Maneuver, which is free to cast. So it has gotten worse. But I still run it just because I'm gonna you got to draw so many cards. You got to mention so many cards.
Yeah.
Look at all the cards you can draw from this.
I mean, I guess you should love this card, Seth. This is Seth board wipe.
I do love this card, but just like objectively looking through my commander list, it shows up every once in a while now. And if you go back to like 2017, 2016, it's like boom, 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 boom. Every deck is in there.
Those decks have corrupted.
I definitely played a lot less. Like I totally agree with Seth. Like this would be a slam dunk in all my black decks before.
It's good anime.
But now I don't run it as much. And so I agree with Seth on
I still love it. Like I still think it's a really sweet card, and I love resolving it, but it doesn't show up like it used to for me.
That's fair. All right, moving on. Richard, what do you got for us?
All right. I have Wheel of Fortune, which I think we played a lot, and we don't actually play that often anymore. And for me, it falls with like Wheel of Misfortune, right? So on one hand, so Wheel of Fortune reserve list, right? Super expensive. So, just in general, we try not to play it. But back
Some
in the
of
day,
us try not to play it.
yeah,
I
but
play it
back
every
in the
time.
day, I used to play it, and I used to actively seek out red. Like if I was white, I would try to be Boros so I could play Wheel of Fortune, right? That's how much I overvalued it. But now, like, I don't even play it without budget restrictions. Like, if you guys like don't like Secret Rendezvous, like, how about you draw the whole table 7 new cards, right? So like, it's only good in decks that truly abuse it, like Storm, like you're gonna win right here, right? Or you can empty your hand real quick and refill. But as generic card draw, Red has gotten so much better card draw over the years that you don't feel so desperate that you need to just wheel and hope your opponents don't kill you. And in a lot of games, we have wheel and we can't cast it, right? We're like, if you wheel, Krim is going to win the game right here. You cannot wheel. You cannot wheel, right? And then you're just holding the wheel and you feel so sad.
Remember those dark times when Hull Breacher was legal?
Oh,
It
yeah.
was like, this card's unplayable.
Yeah.
Pour one out for the homie.
Narset wheels a thing, right? But I feel
Pour
just
one out
wheels,
for the
even if
homie.
they weren't super expensive, like the value's just gone down. We have enough card draw that you're not so desperate to just YOLO reset the table and hope you don't die.
Remember that there was like a discourse like 2 years ago. No, it was like last year. It was last year that there was a discourse on like, should wheels get banned? And we were just like sitting back like, what? Are you guys sure?
Yes. Wheels should be banned. Yes.
Why? To like
I
prevent
still-
people from making the foolish mistake of playing them without Hull Breacher? Like,
Yeah, exactly.
I still play Wheel of Fortune a lot. I remember when we had the budget restriction season and everyone was like, hey, you can't play expensive
broke
cards.
it.
And I was like, okay, but I'm still playing Wheel of Fortune. Like, you're not going to
might
stop
get
me.
it.
Rules to
Like,
play wheel.
Me and
that was
Mana
the
Drain,
one
right?
card I put my foot down about.
and
Like, I'm
I kept
still
telling Seth
casting
like,
that.
there's other card draw in Red. Red does have card draw. And he's like, playing Wheel of Fortune. You can't stop me. I'm like, all right, fine.
I keep drinking.
so fun.
I keep thinking that Homer is drinking mustard.
Mustard.
It does look a little mustardy. Yeah.
It does look
Like
like
a
a mustard bottle.
Like an old
It
like
looks
Eaton's
like-
diner or something. Yeah.
with the labelless bottle. I was just like,
How
Homer,
is it yellow though?
it's
Orange.
It's some like
Old
ketchup, hoisin
'90s
sauce,
mustard is like oddly orangish yellow. So
Look.
I'm the biggest defender of Wheel of Fortune, but I do agree with Richard a little bit that Wizards has done a good job of giving Red more card draw, so I don't think it's as necessary as it used to be. Like, if we were having those conversations today about, like, budgets and, should you play Wheel of Fortune or not, I don't think I would make as big of a deal about it as I did a few years ago when I really felt like you had to play this if you were in Red to be able to keep your hand full and keep up with the rest of the table. I think it is true that there's enough sources of card advantage now that you don't necessarily have to play it. I still think it's good, and I still put it in pretty much all my Red decks, but I don't think it's essential like it used to be.
what about Wheel of Misfortune?
Wheel of Misfortune, I do not like anymore because it just kills me. Pretty much every time I've
I remember
cast it,
the first
die.
time we had a cast on Commander Class and like
Hard
Seth
as
like
gas.
picked like
I think I
30
took
or something.
20
I was
or
like,
something,
whoa,
yeah.
what's going on? We all picked
I
like
will go
we
to
all picked like
one.
1 and 2.
Yeah.
And Seth like, I
20.
need to make sure I
Boom.
draw those cards.
That's right. That was on Commander Legends like release week. Tomer, why'd you bet 20? I mean, Seth, why'd you bet 20?
Gotta make sure you get those
1 and
cards.
2. That card is amazing just for that one moment. I think that redeemed everything. I don't run it that much anymore either.
Yeah,
All
me
right.
either.
All right, moving on. Richard, what do you got for us?
I just did Wheel of Fortune. So Tomer, what do you got?
No, it's, me. What do I got for us? All right, I have one that is kind of spicy. This was a card that was like a Commander Clash staple, and it actually used to be a card that I ran a lot in my original like Commander play group a decade ago, which always sounds so weird. It sounds like I'm gonna crumble to dust. But like when I started playing Commander, we all started with like the original Commander set and with precons and stuff. everybody was running Strip Mine. Strip Mine was the card. It was so prevalent in my original play group and the play groups that I interacted with that people would say, like, you know, like the bounce lands, the Karus, the ones that are like they tap for 2, but when they enter the battle tapped and then they bounce a hand to the thing, people were saying those cards are stone cold unplayable because somebody's going to have a Strip Mine and they're going to Strip Mine and you're going to be behind. Which, first of all, I still think that's a stupid play from 9 times out of 10. But I know Seth would do it to me anyway, so like fair enough. We used to run it all the time in Commander Clash. Like I just remember like some of the biggest moments, like the Mana Crypt, Steel Mana Crypt Strip Mine play is like synonymous with Commander Clash, and that was because Strip Mine was played all the time, and we use it as like a political leverage all the time. I've been noticing that my use of Strip Mine has gone to basically nothing these days. I just don't use it that much. And I think most of us have moved away from it. So I'm kind of curious at the table, if you play less Strip Mine now, do you have any reasons why? What do you replace it with?
So for me, I still play it. I don't play it as much as I used to. I played it, I think, every single deck. If you look at some early seasons, I'm pretty sure it's my like number 1 overall most played card. So I used to play it every single deck. I played it that way up until very recently, like 2020. I think what happened is we did that season with the big ban list, and Krim was salty because I pushed for banning all his cards, and he was like, during our meeting, and he was like, wow, then we got to ban Seth's Strip Mine. So we banned Strip Mine, and then I just kind of forgot to put it back in my decks after it was banned for that season. So now I don't play it nearly as much as I used to. The only other reason I would say is we got more colorless lands. We got Field of the Dead now. Richard has turned me on to Thespian Stages and some of these other options. So there's a little bit less room for a Strip Mine, but I still think I should. This podcast might remind me to put it in every deck again, honestly, because I still think it's like really good. So bounce lands beware. Strip Mine might be making a comeback on Commander Clash.
Dowsing Daggers beware. That's the natural enemy of a Dowsing Dagger.
You would never do it. You would never. If I flipped a Dowsing Dagger on turn 2, would you Strip Mine? You would go down the land?
I Strip Mine people's bounce lands on turn 2 just to send a message. Your Dowsing Dagger has an additional mana. That's like, you don't think so?
I mean, you might do it for the memes and it'd be hilarious, right? But you would lose that game, right? You would lose that game because you basically decided to reverse rampant growth yourself, right? You wasted a land drop, went down a card and a land, and you would lose the game. So I feel super secure playing bounce lands and Dowsing Dagger lands and all that stuff because you don't remove, like, you're not supposed to, right? If you do, you basically sealed your fate just as bad as, in fact, you're down a land and I lost a Dowsing Dagger. I'm still up a land compared to you, right? So it's just incorrect, right? So,
I don't do it because it's right. I do it because it feels good.
Yeah,
it just feels good
the
to
first
someone.
time, right? For the memes. But on a continual basis, you won't, because you won't be able to play your deck, right? So I actually think Strip Mine is too underpowered. You need Field of Ruin that doesn't ramp all the targets,
everyone else,
right?
yeah.
The problem is, like, you want to kill a land but not go down a land. So if you could do that, I think it might be worth playing over other colorless land options. But as is, you just do not want to Strip Mine people because you go down a land. So they need to fix that with a Field of Ruin that's made for Commander.
I fully agree with Richard on this one. I didn't even play it before, pretty much just because of that. Like, I hated the feeling of just being down a land. And, like, yeah, sure, I stop you, but, like, that's fine. Like, all that does is benefit the rest of the table. They don't have to do anything. I have to use a land drop. Unless I'm, like, a Raminap Excavator deck trying to just actually Strip Mine all your lands. That's the only time. Other than that, it's just, like, in a normal deck, I'm not running this. It's colorless. There, like you had mentioned, there are better colorless lands. I'd rather play Ancient Tomb, anything along those lines. Not worry about setting myself back. I'm more so just trying to accelerate. Unless the only time I felt like I've ever needed this is against a Field of the Dead, or like maybe to stop the Urborg, kind of like combo with Cabal Coffers.
Or Cormus Bell. more recently.
more Cormus Bell, yes.
I mean, I agree with that. Like, I've started to value the fact that Strip Mine does have a cost. It's colorless and you go down a land for it. I think there's two reasons why I think I started using it a lot less. The first is that I started shifting from trying to deny, like going down a lane to answer a threat, to just copying the threat with like Vesuva and Thespian stage. Like you flip a Dowsing Dagger or whatever. I'd much rather have my colorless utility land be something that copies it, like Vesuva or a Thespian stage, and then try to blow it up, because then me and that person are down a land, but that's not really helping me that much. It's kind of just putting us down in relation to other people. So I like Thespian Stage. Those two actually kind of like replace Strip Mine for me. Also, there's a lot more options these days in terms of flexible targeted removal. Beast Within was the one that we used the most, but like Generous Gift has shown up like in all my white decks because it's so darn versatile. Like if you have ways to get rid of any permanent, then when there is a land that you need to get rid of, you can just use your Generous Gift on that instead. But for the most part, I just copy it now. I just copy the broken things. I do the broken things myself.
Or I just steal the broken thing.
Yeah.
Agent of treachery. Thank you.
Yeah. I love that, by the way. The people putting like like path, whatever, the thing that homeway path or pathway, whatever.
Homeward
Path. I love that card.
And then you could just steal the homeward path.
That's rude. That's why you have Homeward Path and Brand. You know, you gotta really make sure. All right, Krim, what do you got for us next up? I guess one more round. We'll do one more round of cards, and that's pretty much it.
So I think, like, unironically, I put this on there, and it is lands. It's legitimately lands.
You need to clarify this.
When have you been running lands, Chris?
So, like, believe it, the meme is that I play no lands, but I actually just get bad luck, right? Like I play a lot. Like, I went up to like a 40 land deck and still didn't draw lands. But I actually went down. So, I've noticed that with MDFCs, I have actually gone down a significant amount now. And now so yeah, cards like whatever the compass is getting worse for me, right? But I am just playing more MDFCs than I am now. Like now I am starting to get to the point where I'm like, is Zomph consumption like just like at least like
Join me, Chris. Join me.
Like.
Do I want to run bad non-mana fixing tap lands in my deck 99% of the time? No!
It depends on how many colors I'm playing, but if you look at like the decks that I play now, I've got it reads about like 33 lands. That's because I'm going anywhere between like 5 to 6 MDFCs. I'll play usually the rare cycle and the mythic cycle. Of if it's 2 colors, then I'll definitely be playing all of it, right? And I see no reason not to. It's just it's versatile. It's great. And most of the decks that I'm playing, I don't mind, right? Like this land is tapped, but like other times it could be Hagra Mauling. So it could be Valakut Awakening. I could use Glasspool Mimic. I can copy some other things, like my own things. Like these are all really powerful spells. I'm here for it. I love it. And best part,
hard agree.
Narset hits him.
That's true. That's how I build my decks. They actually almost exactly the same. Like 33 real lands and like around 40 lands with MDFCs, 39, 40. Like I think that's the correct way to build a commander deck, and I'll stand by that.
See, right? Like, and
yeah, Krim knows.
So the land count has gone down.
This is why you're
I
like,
think if we redid the tier
the
list, my
battle
ratings
lands
would
are
go
bad.
up.
Oh, this is the reveal lands are bad. It's like, yes, because you don't run basics. You run Zoff consumption instead.
Yo,
Wow.
We've seen that
Can't
win
run the
games.
swamp. I'd much rather have
Okay.
Zoff
Question for
consumption.
Tomer. Guildgate and plus MDFC, or basic plus whatever land you liked. the Zendikar
Snarls, yes. The
Snarl. whatever.
Snarl.
What would
I
you
like
rather
snarls. I'd much
have? You would
rather
take the basic
snarl.
and Snarl combination
Yeah.
over
man.
Guildgate MDFC? Well,
Yes. Well, it depends on the MDFC. Like if it's Malakir
Onto
Rebirth,
inversion.
I'm going Malakir Rebirth. baby.
No, not an S tier one. Just like a medium, like say a Zoff consumption.
That's not medium. That's the bottom of the barrel. Zoff consumption.
I do draw the line at the 1/1 counter thing, but like,
Yeah, that's the only one I will not play.
MDFCs. I run onto Inversion. I run Valakut Awakening. I run Malakir Rebirth. I run Balagid Recovery. Like I run them. But like I'm not gonna be scraping the bottom of the barrel over a basic lane. I'm sorry. No, there's
Whoa, you're not scraping at all. That is a privilege.
Zoff consumption, really.
Privilege.
Look, next thing you're gonna tell me you're gonna be running like the crappy rogue, whatever. It's like a 2/3 with menace or 5
I do
or
run
whatever.
I actually
that.
think
Oh,
about
God.
that a lot every time I build a deck.
run
I'm
that
like, is
hard.
this the spot to put these like terrible creatures? Like, I actually think about it.
I think like whatever the white anthem effect is great in my humans deck, right? It could be a land or it could be an anthem, kind of like a one
So
like
good.
+2/+2.
I
like
will-
The bad overrun.
I will say I'm
The-
starting
even-
to add
but a
Jwari
bad overrun
Disruption
that is
into
a
my
land.
decks. Just so I can get somebody. It'll be the next level of Mana Tithe. Next
I've started
level of
adding
Mana Tithe
those.
right there.
I add that into all my blue decks now for that reason. That was one I didn't used to play, but now I just play them all. Like seriously,
think
except
it's
the
good. I just
+1/+1
wanna
counter
do
one.
it.
Just throw it in, yeah.
Yeah.
Jawari
memes are
Disruption
strong.
is making its way into just my decks now. I'm just like, wow, hell yeah.
Yeah.
It's killed somebody on Commander Clash, right? I think you killed me.
We
with
get
it.
Mana Tithe all the time. I literally got Mana Tithe like the other week. So like, I promise you this, Jawari Disruption is starting to look better and better.
All right, you heard it here, folks. Stop running lands. Run Zoff consumption instead.
Yes, unironically.
We have died
I'm
for that
actually
card
saying
yes,
cover.
yes.
I don't know.
Ironically
that.
for some of us, unironically for
Cosign.
some others of us.
So,
All right,
yeah.
Seth, what do you got? What do you got?
Oh, all right, I'm gonna give my last one as kind of another hot take. Why not? We've had all hot takes so far that no one agrees with. In this one, I should probably start by saying I don't literally not play this card ever. I just played a lot less than I used to, and that card's Solemn Simulacrum. I was looking back at my. I was looking back. I was looking back at my commander decks.
for
Richard
that one.
Man of
Richard
culture.
pulled stats from Commander Clash seasons. If you go to some of the early seasons, Solemn is my number 1 most played card. Literally the most played card of the whole season. A lot of other seasons, it's like number 2, number 3. I played in every single deck. If you look at more recent seasons, it's like 25th or something. I still play it on occasion if the deck actually calls for it or if it has an artifact theme. Excuse me. But it's not something I just start off every deck with anymore, which is what I did for a long time. So I don't think that Solemn is bad, but I think it's a lot worse than it used to be. It's 4 mana ramp. It's only a 2/2. We have so many other options now. We have so much 2 mana ramp. We have so many card draw options. We're talking about cutting, Harmonize another Decree of Pains. Like, we just have so many options that unless your deck really can play off the themes of Solemn, I don't know if it's actually really worth it. I don't consider an ultra staple that is just the first card you put in all your decks anymore.
My hot take is
mean-
it's underrated. It's actually underrated.
October high five.
Come on,
I'm
Krim.
with
Come on.
Seth on this. I'm with Seth on
thank
this.
you.
It's starting to get really overrated for me. And I don't know. I mean, like first, you know what? Naturally, the guy who's going less basics and more MDFCs agrees with the other guy that also does that, right?
You don't have basics in ramp, obviously. It's F tier if you don't have basics.
I can't.
lands. You
It
don't
cannot get us
Fairly
off
fine.
consumption on the
Yeah, it
battlefield,
can't
so it's no
fetch those
good.
off consumption.
Yeah, they can't get a win con. Like, honestly, I just don't think it does enough for 4 mana. It comes down at a cost now where, like, 4 mana, cards just get so much better. Like, it's sad to say, because, I love my sad bot, but just, it doesn't do what it once did. It just doesn't do what it once did. Simple as that. It does not, body enough of the rest of the pod for it to do anything.
I think it's so whenever people have a list of like cards that are no longer good enough in Commander, Command Zone did it. I asked on a Twitter thread to get ideas on what people had. That's not also, this is not the idea of this podcast, by the way. We're not talking about cards that are no longer good enough in Commander, obviously, because we're talking about like playing less lands, but like, lands are still good enough.
You're saying basic planes is not good enough.
No good.
No, so my whole spiel is that a lot of people like Solemn Simulacrum comes up a lot as an example that is just not good enough in Commander. I actually, because of all that, I will go and say it's actually underrated, because this is the card that basically, if I'm not in green, it's basically an auto include. It ramps. Ramp is good because it means
include?
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, you have a lot of if you're not in green, you have limited sources of land ramp. Yes, you have a lot of 2 mana ramp now. Those will get blown up, and yes, they are efficient. And yes, I do run them, but I will also still run Solemn, because when the Solemn blows up, guess what? I draw a card, and my ramp is still on the battlefield. The other thing that I think is really good is that when you have a Solemn on the battlefield, suddenly people with big creatures, they somehow, for some reason, swing at other people and not into your Solemn. Why? Because you're going to chump block and you're going to draw a card. And that's like a weird deterrent, but it actually works so many more times. And I've also had like a Solemn where it's sitting on the battlefield and somebody has like a Sword of X and Y and has protection from my creatures. Guess what? The Solemn is colorless, baby. It can still block. And then, like, if you have any deck that's like a blink deck, any deck that cares about artifacts like Osgir or whatever, it's so easy to get more and more value out of it. It's a creature, so you want to sacrifice it. Like, essentially it's 4 mana, ramp, draw a card. That's already 3, but then on the top, the fact that it's a chump blocker and you can do so many more synergy things for it, that makes it worth the 4 easy in my book. Solemn is still good, still playable, still very good in Commander. I rest my case.
I agree, Tomer. So since we've been doing these tier lists, right, I spend a lot of time thinking, like, what would the absolute top 10 best cards in Commander would be? Like, just Commander, not even in a category. And I think it's Solemn. Like, to me, Solemn is like Quad S for all the reasons.
Quad S?
Like, so only 2 colors can ramp in Magic, green and white does like a pretty questionable job, as you guys mock me for, right? So the most powerful thing in all of Magic can be done by this colorless 4 mana card, right? It also draws a card on its way out. It provides you a blocker for you to not die. It provides pressure for hitting planeswalkers and players, right? And it's non-assuming in that when you play it on turn 4, everyone's not going to try to murder you. Right? So I actually think it's one of the best Magic cards, and actually one of the best designed Magic cards as well. And it goes in every single deck, even green decks. And especially if you're playing Grixis, the non-ramp decks, you must 100% auto-include this card. Otherwise, you end like Krim and have like 3 lands, right? Like, you cannot ramp in those colors. Solemn is your only hope, right? So it's like SSSSSSS. Like,
I can't believe I'm agreeing with Secret Rendezvous.
I know, right? I know.
Right.
I feel so connected, Tomer.
Finally, we agree on something, Richard.
Why does Solemn get a pass, though? Like,
pass
I'll play it
for
in
what?
Panharmonicon, I'll play it in Artifact decks, but it's 2022. Like, everyone's on the like, oh, don't play 3 mana rocks. We got enough 2 mana rocks. Everyone's on don't play 4 mana ramp. We got 3 mana ramp. We got 2 mana ramp. Why is this one card? I feel like it's just nostalgia that is clouding everyone's judgment because it's an iconic card that everyone loves. But for some reason, everyone's like, oh, Solemn, it's the best card ever. It's a 4 mana ramp spell. Like, why isn't my explosive vegetation or
you
whatever
wrap
good
the
enough
board,
anymore?
I end up a card and I still keep my land. That's the difference, right? You don't play like a Thran Dynamo. Like, the argument is it's just like a ritual, right? You play it, you get mana, and then it dies instantly. But the Solemn survives, right? The land stays there permanently. Permanent land ramp is very important.
I guess I'm just not as afraid of people blowing up my mana rocks as y'all are, because that comes up a lot when we talk about stuff. And
But it
I don't
always
know.
happens.
Maybe I should be more afraid of it, but for some reason,
because I play all the cards to blow up the mana rocks all the time. You play it by pod, Seth.
So, like, there's a lot of cards that I used to run, and I look at it and I'm like, I'm not going to run anymore. But there's cards that I still run, and they still impress me. Like, I'm looking at the stats. Season 11, I'm a guest, so I don't show up that often. But Solemn's my top most played card. And then in last season, which I was an active member of, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 in my top 6, behind a couple other cards. So I still play it, and like usually when I'm playing a card that's old and I see it in game, like once you play the card, you could kind of figure out like is this card doing what I want it to be doing? And the answer, because I'm still playing it in 2022, is yes. Like every single time I'm playing it, I'm all like, gee, I wish this was something else. I'm like, this is a good card. And I still run 2-mana rocks. Like I still run the Talisman, I still run Mind Stone, I still run, whatever, the Signets and all that stuff. I still run those. But the question is like, if you have like 10 ramp cards in your deck, does Solemn still make a slot of those 10? And for me, the answer is yes.
For me, it's only if my deck cares about what Solemn's doing, Panharmoniconing or Artifact or whatever. So,
and Krim would have to tap out to cast this, so it's still on time.
Useless.
It's a blocker to protect your planeswalkers.
I do play it in my Amanatu deck, but that's because Amanatu can blink it, right?
That makes sense.
And yes, it does block planeswalkers, but
you can protect your planeswalkers in your Navindril deck.
It could, if I wanted to play this. Yeah, sure.
I'm actually very curious. So for listeners, head over to the YouTube channel to participate in the comments and tell us what you think about Solemn. Like, because I know Tomer's right, where a lot of people think it's overrated now. But is it still good? Like, do you play it and regret? Like, are you trying to cut it out of your deck? Or are you like me and Tomer and think it's the greatest card ever and you should be playing it more? I'm actually curious what the general population thinks about this.
Are you like Richard and Tomer? Wrong.
And remember, viewers, if you like Solemn, you must love Secret Rendezvous. Remember this.
No, I take it all back.
It comes in a package.
I can't go that far. There's also I don't want to derail, but there's another to think about. Also, maybe it's a new podcast topic. Honestly, we talk about things that people think is overrated and see if we think they're underrated. Actually, Cultivating Kodama's Reach, I'll stand by that. It's still good in 2022. That's my other hot take.
Yeah, those ones are great.
Everybody
People
says
say
it's
they're
overrated.
bad.
I'm like, you're all crazy. You're all crazy. Anyway, we'll move on to whose was that even?
That was mine. I think it's Richard and you
All right.
as the last one.
So
I think.
Last two.
there used to be a time where all my decks started with the Door of Destinies.
Yes, I remember this.
Okay, it was my favorite card, right? And it's a 4-mana artifact. You choose a creature type. When you cast a creature of that type, you get a +1/+1 charge counter on it, and then your creatures get +1/+1 for each charge counter on Door of Destinies, right? And as a player of jank tribes, I needed this to make my creatures big enough to be respectable, not to get laughed off the table. But I find this card is bad, actually, right? And that my philosophy and how I play the game has changed significantly since those early days. But what this essentially is half a combo piece on the table where you have to play it, everyone sees it, and then they know that when you chain off enough creatures, you're going to die. So they remove you or it immediately, right? So I don't play any of these incremental pump, like Honor of the Peer I used to play a lot. Like those kind of like just like 2 mana, all your creatures get very slightly bigger. Door of Destinies, because it just telegraphs what you're about to do. And what I prefer to play now is Coat of Arms or Beastmaster's Ascension, or even like a plain Overrun. Because you want to spend time setting up, casting Solemns, having everyone laugh at you for playing Solemn in 2022. And then you slam down the finisher and kill them, right? You don't want to start with the finisher and give everyone time to muster up their response and wait to get you, right? So you don't want them to hold up mana for Teferi's protection knowing you're about to swing in for lethal. So I actually feel, this card is actually played a lot still. And it's really hard to pull off, right? And I don't like this anymore.
you ever wondered how Richard wins with janky tribes? I think you just described it, like that play pattern right there, where you like keep it hidden in hand so you don't know what's coming, and then slam it down. So it actually makes a lot of sense. I've never been a big Door of Destiny player. I don't really play that style of deck that much, but I think I definitely agree with you.
Creatures get so big, it's so tempting, but
I fell into that trap
too
too.
telegraphed.
But yeah, it's too, yeah. As Richard said, it's too telegraphed. Like I used to play it, but like it will get shut down before you can really utilize it. That's the problem. So as he said, like Beastmaster Ascension, you just play 3 mana, you put it on the battlefield. You don't put it ahead. You don't put it like on turn 3 or something. Hold on to it. Like same thing with Coat of Arms. You hold on to it until you're ready to kill somebody. Then you play it and you attack and you win. Whereas
Coat of Arms is probably better, right? I mean, in that case, because like if you hold on to this, you have to then cast a ton of things, right? And so yeah, like I used to play this everywhere. I think the only reason why I have it in any of my paper decks now is just because I've always had it. This should just be a Vanquisher's Banner. I think Vanquisher's Banner or anything else like an Eldrazi Monument is just better than this. And then, of course, Coat of Arms is still very solid in a tribal deck. Where that's the one where you can just hold and then drop later and then just win with.
I was going to say that, too. Wizards has printed a lot of, like, choose a creature type cards lately. Like, we've gotten so many more of those. So there's a lot of other options for your tribal decks, too. So this isn't, like, one of the only ones in existence. So you got Vanquisher's Banner, and you got all the commander cycles, like the Kindred, whatever cards. So you got a lot more options, too, where you don't need to play this to support your random janky tribe.
And there's like flexible finishers now too. Like Akroma's Will, I think a big reason why Akroma's Will is so good is because it's both a finisher that doubles as evasion and whatnot. It gets that extra damage through. It's double strike, protection from all colors or something. Double strike, protection from a color or multiple or whatever. And I don't know what does Akroma's Will do?
It does everything. It just has so much text on it. I think it just does. You die, you kill someone. Someone dies.
Choose one if you control is 4 mana, a white instant. Choose one if you control a commander. As you cast a spell, you choose both. Creatures you control gain flying, vigilance, and double strike until end of turn. So there's your evasion. Creatures you control gain lifelink, indestructible, and protection from all colors until end of turn. So one side of it is just like you protect your board from a board wipe, which makes like stuff like Decree of Pain worse, as we talked earlier. But then the other side is the finisher, and if you have your commander on the battlefield, you do both. So like the fact that you can have a card that protects your board, but also it doubles as your finisher, just means like it's usually better than just having something that's a dedicated finisher slot, unless it like is so good that it just wins you the game, like Coat of Arms. All right, I'm gonna round off the list with a card that might be hot, might be spicy. And this is a card that used to be when I started playing the game again a decade ago, because I'm ancient. It was like one of the best card draw spells in the format. It was like, this is a huge color bend. Whoa, why is green doing this so well? It's an auto-include in green forever and ever in eternity. It's the best card draw spell in green we'll ever see, ever. It's Harmonize. This is a 4 mana green sorcery, 2 and double green, and it just says draw 3 cards. That's it. Remember when text boxes were small? So pay 4 mana, draw 3 cards, easy peasy, no strings attached. You don't need to have creatures. It doesn't stop when lands into the battlefield, blah, blah, blah. So it's incredibly consistent, incredibly reliable. And 4 mana for 3 cards, even to this day, is a pretty decent rate. And this is like a time color shifted version of it. Like Blue has a version of this, and it was color shifted way back when. This was a card that was basically an auto include in every single green deck ever, and I was no different. I still think this is a very good card, and I still think it's definitely a very playable card, and I will run it in some decks. The thing is, I run it like a fraction of the number of green decks that I used to. This used to be like the first card I put into any green deck. Now I will cut it at least half the time, probably a lot more than that, honestly. And the reason is that green is just so good at drawing cards these days. Like if I'm in a green heavy deck am I going to be running Harmonize over Guardian Project, Beast Whisperer, Toski, Shamanic Revelation, Rishkar's Expertise, Ingaruk's... Like, all of these are just like, you pay mana, and then you draw more cards than the mana you spent on it by, like, a bajillion. And like that's like just the thing that green has. And how many of these do you need? Like, how many of the great henches do you need? How many of these things do you want? Where, like, if I have like 10 of them in my deck, you know what? Harmonize is number 11. I'm sorry, you gotta go. I don't need you anymore. So that's big. Also, like, if you're in a green deck, so if you're in green, you're either like creature heavy or you're like landfall. And landfall, you're just drawing cards just by existing. Like, you're Get Rug or Tat Yova or something like that. Like, Harmonize just isn't good enough for a lot of the decks that I play anymore. It's just like, it's great. It's an amazing card. The Return of the Wild Speaker draws me 12 at instant speed. And it's a finisher. Like, okay.
You need to stop saying that. You need to stop putting that energy out there, because then somebody at WotC's gonna make green better, and I already don't need that. So, like,
Harmonize 2.0.
Harmonize is very good. It's overpowered. Please stop making green cards that are better.
I hear what you're saying,
green
Domer.
struggle to draw cards.
Yeah. I mean, it is. I think I agree with you, sort of. Like, it is true that you had to play Harmonize back in the day because green wasn't good at drawing cards. I still usually play it, though. Like, I agree that we've got the Great Hench, we've got, Return of the Wild, we've got a ton of other options that are really good. But this one still usually makes it in at the bottom of my card draw list in green deck. So I haven't quite gotten to where you are, where it like gets cut. Maybe I just play more, like a little bit more card draw than you or something. So I still think it's playable. And if I look at my decks, it still shows up pretty consistently. But I think that I probably will be where you are in another couple years of Wizards printing busted green cards. Like, it will get bumped off the list eventually. I haven't quite gotten there yet, but it's going to happen.
Tomer, our friendship was so fleeting. I thought we finally agreed. How could I don't understand? Like, it's different card draw. All the good green card draw you listed is conditional, right?
Yeah.
It requires you to hit with a creature, requires you to have many creatures, requires you to cast creatures, right? Or whatever, right? This is just unconditional, straight up card draw. In the same way, like, 4 mana ramp is not better than 2 mana ramp because you get double the lands for half the card, No, right? It's a different purpose, right? So this is unconditional card draw, and it is so good that I put it in non-green decks. The only color you wouldn't put it with is blue, right? Because blue has a lot of these effects. But even black, you just have Painful Truth, and like that's it, right? Like,
what about Siphon Mind?
Secret Rendezvous in white, and like that's it, right? Like, you don't have this just raw, unconditional card draw that you can play off of. So I agree that, yes, there's lots of good kind of high-end card draw for green, but you still need this unconditional, quote-unquote, low mana cost, even though 4 is a lot, right? But it costs a lot more to play a Great Henge and like 3 creatures to draw 3 cards, right? So you still need these cards, and Harmonize is one of the first cards I put in green decks and multicolor decks. So I actually think it's underrated somehow, right? Like, it's
better
really
or
good.
worse than Secret Rendezvous, if you have to rate
Secret
it,
Rendezvous
yeah.
was 3 for 3, Tomer. So Secret
There.
Rendezvous is better. But this is really good. This is really good.
All right. You on it?
You play this?
Grim doesn't play
I don't-
green. He's never cast a
what
Harmonize
is
in
a
his
green
life.
card?
He loves
Yeah,
green.
like why would I ever play this card? It's in green, a color that I often and avidly avoid. And,
Green decks you
yeah.
always ironically play for some reason.
Yeah, this
Do
is
they
a
not run
sorcery speed
Harmonize?
that's unplayable.
I don't.
can't
I
draw
have
go of
I have
this.
my ooze deck, but why would I play it there? Because my ooze deck has blue in it, so I can go ahead and draw that way. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I just this card doesn't seem that good. Play a whatever, the Hydra Crisis. Just play that.
That's an X. That's 4 mana draw 2.
But it's a body on top of this card. Doesn't do enough anymore.
I mean, Crisis is really good.
All right. So we're left at an impasse here for Harmonize. Let us
An
know
impasse.
if you wanna comment on it. Find our YouTube video here and post it there, or you can tweet it at us #ClashMail. We'll read it there as well. Do you think Harmonize is underrated, overrated? Still something that you will auto include in a green deck, or do you end up cutting it more often these days? Let us know. I'd love to hear different opinions on that one.
I don't know if I gotta rethink my solemn argument now that
come
Tomer,
to our side,
now that Tomer
Richard.
thinks Harmonize is bad. I don't know if I want to be on this
I didn't
boat.
say it's bad. I
Yeah,
said
you
it's
might need
good.
to-
It's just that green has insane freaking options that Harmonize is not insane. Harmonize is good, but it's not insane. And green's kind of insane with card draw. That's why.
All right, here's a
That's
question.
my whole
Turn
thing.
4, you have 4 mana. You have a Solemn and a Harmonize in hand. What do you
Play
cast?
Solemn.
Secret
Of course I play
Rendezvous.
Solemn.
Secret
I'm
Rendezvous.
Turn 4. Am I
Really
empty-handed
grabbed
on
the
turn
wrong
4?
deck. This is not my deck.
What is all these Nissa cards?
Yeah.
Oh man. All right. Well, that wraps up our list. As we said, at the beginning, this is not like you shouldn't run these cards. These are our personal experiences on cards we used to run, but not as much anymore. So that's basically it. It could be power reasons. It could be preference reasons. It could be whatever reason we wanted. We gave it to you. What do you think about this list? Do you agree or disagree with some of our assessments? And what are some cards that you used to run but don't anymore? And why? Is it for power reasons, or is it because of preference reasons, or any other reason? Let us know in the comment section below on YouTube, or you can reach us out Twitter, #ClashMail, and give us your thoughts there as well. As always, if you enjoy this sort of content, be sure to help us out, help the channel grow by leaving a little like on Spotify or wherever you're listening to this, or on YouTube. Give it a little upvote, a little dingle dangle, all that good stuff. And until next time, friends, see ya!